Thanks, Cherine, for joining in this conversation.
Thank you.
So, the announcement of formation of Council for Competitive Climate Transition. How do you view that? I mean, Singapore has always been kind of ahead of the curve when it comes to any new developments, whether it is climate, whether it is finance or other areas. So, how do you view this whole development of announcement of C3T?
It is definitely very encouraging in my view. And I think it formalizes what has always been our way of working, where our public sector and private sector comes together very often to have dialogues. And the decisions that we make as a country, they consider both macro and micro aspects, right? And making it a fair field, leveling the playing field for everyone involved. And I think this is very encouraging and very, very necessary for climate action. In particular, where the gaps can be addressed, I think, would be where policy becomes real and actionable on the ground. So they become useful policies, right? That takes into account different perspectives. And increasingly, what is interesting also is that we are not just seeing a public sector supporting private sector. I think the reverse is also true. Because trade flows, business talks, business dialogues, financial flows, these happen quite seamlessly across the region. And so, in some ways, I think in terms of creating strength within the ASEAN bloc, this council itself will also be able to help facilitate that dialogue at policy level for the governments through the private sector support.
So, as a partner, heading ESG Consulting at KPMG, how do you see the situation of companies in Singapore? I mean, they are at kind of varying stages of their ESG and decarbonization journeys. So, how do you see this development? How do you think that C3T will help standardize things for that?
Okay, we work with many businesses, and I think where we would see now looking back, in the last few years, it has been really important for businesses to get up to speed, right, on what climate change really is and how it poses real risk and opportunities for them from a business lens. Now, where they are now stuck, where they cannot scale and move forward, would be where companies do not have the expertise themselves. They are not able to procure the expertise around climate risks and climate assessments, and where they actually need guidance and signals on what they should be expecting so that they can do business planning the next 12 months, the next 36 months. Okay. And so, what really is needed right now, where the Singapore government can also help a lot with, would be giving them more targeted visibility as to, for different sector, what are the transition pathways, right? What are the different linkages between different sectors in terms of emissions dependency, trade flows, as well as providing them with um, the certain level of confidence that in the macro system, different parts of the infrastructure is being taken care of. And so the businesses can really focus on doing business. And I think that kind of assurance and confidence is a good boost to the businesses here.
Right. So, SMEs form a large segment of the business community, business landscape in Singapore, and probably in most countries. So, how do you see SMEs being able to kind of get used to carbon accounting, reporting, and all those things? I mean, do you think that it's going to be a tedious journey for them? I mean, what kind of infrastructure would need to be in place for that?
Well, the Singapore Business Federation has done a lot with the support of the government bodies and the private sector. They have created tools, carbon calculators. They have created a marketplace, a net zero hub where different expertise is available there so that SMEs can actually have a one-stop shop. And they feel that there is also a peer community that they can rely on as they continue to grow on sustainability. Financial institutions themselves have also been very active. So, for example, your likes of DBS, UOB, OCBC, Maybank, all of them have actually SME green financing programs. Okay. I think the SMEs, if you think about the last 3, 5 years, they have come a long way in understanding sustainability, but they may not formalize it under the header of sustainability. Where SMEs really add value is that they are very, very agile, okay, to changes in the economic environment. And so now, when we are talking about energy crisis or water crisis, heat resilience, these directly impact SMEs and they react to that, right? There are also many. They're also very innovative in their solutions. However, they may not come under the banner of sustainability or climate change. So where we come in is to help them structure that thinking, right? Helping them to really create a structured way of looking at where the value can be in the pursuit of sustainability.
Right. Now, the carbon costs have been increasing when they're already at $45 in Singapore.
Yes.
And give and addition to that is, all the regulatory expectations. So how do you think the companies in Singapore are kind of calibrating themselves or even their strategies to be able to kind of, you know, get through this? And what do you think are the biggest execution challenges?
I think the challenge, I would say the biggest risk that I fear would be that companies are seeing sustainability or climate risk separately from their core strategy and their business planning. Earlier on, we discussed a lot about business continuity planning. When companies look at climate change and factor for rising carbon prices, increasing regulations as a sidetrack, they are actually not internalizing that kind of changing business environment that they are in. They actually need to have it core and central in terms of their strategy, their planning, and therefore be able to execute it no different from any other business risk, right? And therefore, the trade-offs that you normally would have and the prioritization you normally would have in a business decision will be no different in a sustainability context.
Even though it is called ESG, I mean, the emphasis seems to be more and more, I mean, only on the environment part of it, the S and G kind of getting sidelined or neglected. I don't know. I mean, so how do you see that? Since you had the ESG practice.
Yes. I would say for KPMG, we have been very intentional in thinking about social sustainability. In fact, KPMG's global practice is recognized by Text as a leading practice for social sustainability. Now, what we do is we make sure that every sustainability or every initiative that we have considers sustainably social implications. And these social implications can range from your workforce impacts, right, to even social equity. And on a larger scale, how does this affect social compact? Um, when our clients think about sustainability and we advise them, we often make sure that we deliberately put in the social elements as well, even when clients are forgetting about it because they get sidelined. And you'll be surprised that many companies already have the basics in place. So they are signed on to, through the MOM or the Ministry of Manpower guidance for them, they are already on track for many of the human resource and talent management related social issues. What we need them to do more is talk about, hey, other than this, other than the hygiene factors, what else do we do in terms of social impact? Where else can we exercise leadership?
So looking forward, how do you think Singapore can position itself not just as a compliant economy, but as a competitive hub when it comes to climate innovation, green finance, and sustainable business models?
I think Singapore has already started the journey, right? So in the recent, we signed many contracts around carbon markets, and we are actively speaking to different countries around sustainability, trade, as well as resilience, all in the same conversation. Innovation tends to thrive when there is a vibrant community and where thinking outside the box is actually encouraged. And I think through research institutions and some of the new, for example, the council that is being set up, that level of incentivization for research projects, innovation projects will come in. And there is also new models around PFAS, as well as financing models that through blended finance mechanisms, for example, that the banks and the financial institutions are working hard on. For Singapore to become a hub, right, other than innovation in a very sandbox manner, we also have to have the right infrastructure so that the confidence level can be boosted. And therefore, people feel that, they can trust when they come into Singapore, the investments into climate innovation, that will lead to something of a good outcome. There is good governance. There is actually a good measurement around the proceeds as well as the results. And I think all the different parts of it forms the environment for which Singapore can thrive as a hub.
So do you think that this is a big opportunity for Singapore in terms of, it was considered as a huge financial services center. So you think this transition finance, carbon markets, is this another big opportunity knocking the doors?
Definitely. I think anything that actually happens is always both an opportunity, right, and a risk. It really depends on how we look at it and the leadership that we exercise. Now, the key now is on the execution. Are we able to execute in the manner that we have planned? right? And do we have the people with us? Do we have the private sector with us, the public sector with us? And if I think we are very, very much aligned in what we're trying to achieve, definitely I think I'm very confident that, we will do something good, not just for ourselves, but also, contributing to the rest of the world.
Thanks, Cherine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ishet.